Hi, everybody. Welcome to Classics You Slept Through, the book podcast where we read books that literally take you to other worlds. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who can trace her lineage back 10,000 generations to the great Jetax of Pennsylvania, I suppose. My sister, Meredith.
And how come when I wait, you don't say how you doing, Mare? And I wait for you to say it, and every other week I talk over you. Fine, I'm doing great, Kyle.
That's good. I'm glad. Did you get snow this morning?
No, just rain. We're gonna get some this week.
We got some.
We had some.
Yeah,
Wednesday.
I think Wednesday. Yeah, I think Wednesday it's coming.
Yeah.
We had snow all morning. It just stopped. It didn't. It's actually all melted by now. It's stuck around on the grass for an hour or two. That was about it. Oh, extremely. They ran out there barefoot and rolled around in it.
That's awesome.
Then they had some hot chocolate. Now they're all hopped up on caffeine, so that's wonderful.
Nice. I hope it snows. I hope it snows and it never stops. And then people will have to stay home, and
wow.
I'll also have something to do, which is...
Do you want to build a snowman or something? Or?
I do. Ride a bike.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, as we said, we are the book podcast. We read classic books and discuss them. We have read 13 chapters of A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And now we're discussing, this is the talk about it portion, and we're talking about chapters 8 through 13. So just to quickly recap the first 7 chapters, we're talking about John Carter, former Confederate officer, who somehow gets transported to Mars and becomes a captive of the Green Men of Mars, these 15-foot, 6-armed, tusked monstrosities that ride 10-legged creatures and are all naked except for their jangly bits.
Meaning their jewelry.
Their jewelry. Their metal they wear. Spear-carrying, gun-toting warriors of Mars. And John finds himself on Mars. The reduced gravity, he finds himself powerful. He can leap. He can punch. He's very strong comparatively.
Can kill a Martian with a single uppercut.
Single blow. He can just destroy him. Well, John, upon arriving to Mars, stumbled upon an incubation chamber. These Martians are hatched from eggs. And we meet Tars Tarkas, who is a chieftain of the Green Martians. They were coming out to check on their eggs, find John Carter, and now they take him back to the city.
He's their captive.
He is their captive. So that's where we pick up in chapter 8. So they have returned to this city that they're squatting in. What we've learned is that these green men, being the warriors that they are, they don't build much, though. They don't have a whole lot of art or culture. They're just a warrior class.
There are remnants of art and culture, though, which we learned from the first part, which are sized more for humans than for the Martians. Right.
And so that's the city that we're in now, that John Carter and the Martians return to. So while they're in this city, they look out. John looks out the windows and he sees these airships kind of coming up over the mountains. And this sets off a blur of activity amongst the Green Martians. They quickly run up into the buildings, and as the ships get closer, they open fire. They just begin attacking these ships.
Out of nowhere. Or at least it seems like out of nowhere.
Seems so. So we learn that these Green Martians are pretty good shots. So they've got their assigned targets. Some guys are shooting the targeting systems of these ships. Some are taking out the crew. But they're pretty effective. They
Is
pretty
that
much
how
nullify.
It works? Is that good combat, style?
Yeah, I mean, it's preventing the enemy from responding.
Do people have, does that make sense, though? Do people have, assigned targets? You will always shoot the buildings. Well, you wouldn't shoot a building.
I mean, I am not... I've never been a member of a Tharkian warrior clan, so I suppose.
I guess it's not standard operating procedure in our world.
I mean, so I used to play a PC game when I was a kid called Sentinel Worlds. and had sort of space combat. And you could target different parts of a ship. And I always very methodically, you take out the lasers first, then you take out the engines, and then you board them. So, I mean, I suppose they're doing something similar here.
Well, speaking of lasers and space, I have to tell you this. Vincent has not watched Star Wars yet, though he thinks he likes it. Right?
Of course he likes it. Everybody likes it.
He's never watched it. So the other day, he was dressed with swimming goggles on, boots, and he had my hair diffuser. Do you know what a diffuser is? Or a hair dryer?
Yeah.
It's like the pokey thing. It's like big.
Right.
It's a circle. It's pokey.
Sure.
And he had that on his hand. And he came in and he goes, well, Star Wars. I'm Darth Vader, Queen of the Lasers. And I was like,
he's got it figured out.
Darth Vader, Queen of the Lasers.
Hasn't seen it, but he's got it. Yep. He's got it all
figured out.
Don't let him watch it. Just let him keep going with that. Be like, you're exactly right, son.
Darth Vader, Queen of the Lasers versus the person, Star Wars. All right, continue.
Oh man, it's like you ever see Bill Murray's SNL skit back in the '70s? When he's a Star Wars lounge singer.
Oh my God, no, I don't think so.
Oh, it's fan. I'll
have to look it up.
We'll put it in the show notes, but it's fantastic. Yeah. Well, anyway, so they're shooting the ships here. One of the ships is kind of listing badly towards the end of this fight, is drifting towards the city. The Green Martians race up into the building, and before it crashes, they sort of use poles to pull the ship off. Guys below hook it with grappling hooks, and they pull this ship down. They're able to loot it, and they also find a beautiful, nude, of course, female. She also is adorned with jewelry of some manner, but otherwise naked. Which I have to point out, this book was written in, serialized in 12 and written in 1917. None of the descriptions match any of the artwork because the people are not nude in any of the artwork of the book.
They're certainly not.
They're wearing clothing. So
she's all Princess Leia'd out in some of them. Like this cool bikini thing happening.
This is an influential book. We've said it before.
Did you see Ray Bradbury thinks that Edgar Rice Burroughs is hands down, bar none, the most influential writer of that particular century.
Of that period, yeah. I would say so. I mean, if you're talking sci-fi, a lot of this feels familiar, doesn't it? Well, a lot of this feels familiar, doesn't it?
Fair. Yeah, that's a good point.
Just reading these books, from a modern perspective, it's tough to put yourself in that period where people have never seen this before, right?
Yeah.
To us, it's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Go to Mars, warriors and whatnot.
What's the classic pirate book?
Treasure Island?
Treasure Island. So back last year, I think, one of my teachers that I was supervising was teaching Treasure Island, and the kids were like, this is so cliche, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that's because this is what started it. This is the original pirate book. And they were like, oh. That's why everybody's got a wooden leg and it's Long John Silver this and that. And, so going back, I think that actually sheds a new light on this book if you think about it that way.
Right. Because a lot of this stuff does feel cliche as you're reading this and you're like, okay, I've seen this 100 times. Well, because this sort of where it came from.
Yeah. Hence, classic.
Classic. All right, so end of this chapter, John sees this woman. She kind of does a little hand gesture at him. He doesn't know what she's doing.
What'd she do? Flash a gang sign? Like what?
I don't know. I think it was like playing the circle game. She's playing the circle game. Gonna whack John.
She failed.
They're all naked.
Oh my God! All
right. But so then we close, and they decide. Lorcas Tommel, who is a wise leader, decides they're going to stay in the city for a week just in case there's some sort of retaliation. You don't want to be caught in the open if these ships come back. So that closes out 8.
Yeah.
Anything else in this chapter you saw?
I don't know. I'm just the language that Burroughs uses sometimes is very simple and then sometimes very overwrought. And the fact that she wasn't naked, she was destitute of clothing. It makes it sound like a picture like crawling along the ground, like clothes, please.
Yes.
Clothes for the poor. No, just destitute of clothing. She's naked.
And he does sort of kind of flip between almost colloquial language and then very sort of high and haughty language through the book. So it's kind of interesting.
I can't wait to get to his joke that he just dropped in there.
Oh, yes. We're almost there. All right. So chapter 9 opens up with probably the best part of any 80s movie, the training montage. So he's learning weapons. He's learning tactics with the women. He's learning the language, by the way. He just sort of throws that in there. Oh, yeah, I also, in the past week, have learned their language. They don't know it yet. Yeah, exactly. But so we discover that the women are the primary trainers. They're not the frontline fighters, but they're responsible for training in the art of war, and they also are the reserves in case something happens. They need to be pressed into combat. They make the weapons. They make all the ammunition. And the men concentrate on higher strategy. Women probably couldn't comprehend higher strategy, so
the men also write the laws, which have been handed down by ages.
Yes. And the Martians, they're a very happy people because they have no lawyers.
I read that and I was like, why, Burroughs? Why? I just picture an editor being like, dude, take that out. And he's like, no, it's good.
No. Come on, that's a lawyer joke. It's a lawyer joke. Even in the early 1900s, people loved lawyer jokes. Man.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so then it's determined that they've got this captive, and they want to take her to the great Tal Hagis, who is their Jedak. He is the chief of chiefs among the Green Martians. We get a nice little picture of Sola's tenderness, which we've sort of alluded to with her caring for John Carter. She says, hey, this girl hasn't done anything to us. Why are we taking her to Tal Hagis, who has this reputation of being extremely cruel? So it's probably not good news for her to go see him.
No.
And so because of this tenderness and soft-heartedness that Sola seems to have, John makes up his mind that he's going to ask Sola for her help to break this girl out, and they're going to get out of there.
Yeah,
they're
he can trust her.
Right.
Because they've got a spy and a other enemy in Sarkoja.
Right.
Who doesn't like Sola because of her tenderheartedness.
Right. And it should be mentioned that both Sarkoja and Sola are part of Tars Tarkas's retinue. They are sort of bonded to him as women in the retinue. It's a good word. And because John is Tars Tarkas's captive, that's kind of how they're all related throughout this.
Yeah, they take care of him.
Right.
Well, he's both captive and chieftain in some respect at this point because he's killed one Martian so far and received all of his stuff.
Right. He doesn't quite know that yet.
Right. But they do.
They do. Exactly. And we'll get to that here in this next chapter.
Kyle doesn't like it when I jump the timeline.
Well, they chapterize these things. You got to dole out the knowledge slowly, right? Okay, so end of 9, he decides he's going to try to escape. So in the beginning of 10, he's going to start pushing the limits and see how much he can do. Because he is this captive who's afforded some courtesy because of what he's done, they give him sort of walking privileges. He has freedom to walk about because he's got his trusty Woola, his companion animal.
What a good name.
that sort of follows him around. So he decides to see, all right, let's see how far I can push this. He goes to the edge of the city and sees if he can get out of the city. And Woola starts to stop him. Woola kind of freaks out a little bit. But then John's like, you know what? Let me try something. And so he just starts petting the dog. Aww. He starts playing with him. They kind of roll around a little bit. Yeah. They kind of roll around a little bit. And he laughs for the first time and realizes, all right, this dog, he starved for affection, and now he's mine. And now he can leave the city. And so he walks out into the hills. And he's like, there's nothing there, so I'm not going to push it. Because if I run, obviously this woman's in trouble, and they're probably going to kill Woola. So I'll just go back. You know. Now, but he has this knowledge now that should he need to get out, he can. So then he sees the woman, and she's being taken to see the chief, to see Lorcas Tommel. And so he's like, let me go see what's up. He sort of just waltzes in to this meeting of Tharkian chiefs to see what's up.
Pronunciation note. In my reading, for some reason, my brain was like, you have to say the P in Tomel.
Potomel?
Little baby, be quiet.
So you said Lorcas Potomel?
Every now and then it comes out, and I'm like, I can't stop and re-record just because I said that. And then I started calling her Deha.
Instead of Deja?
So
I don't know.
There's
no pronunciation guide. So I don't know.
Deja? I went to school with a girl whose name was Kaja, Kaya. And people would call her Kaja, and she'd be like, no, it's Kaya. So, yeah. I don't know.
Who knows? I don't know. I don't have Martian pronunciation. Well, hello there. We have a guest on the pod, as usual. Seems to be the thing nowadays.
There's so much to say.
Well, anyway, so in this meeting, we find out that it is, in fact, her name is Deja Thoris, and she is from a long line of Martian Jeds, and her grandfather is the current Jedak of the Red Martians. So we have now two races on Mars. We've got the gigantic green Martians and the more human-sized red Martians.
Also, it's kind of obvious that I feel like Burroughs is doing like this indigenous fantasization of Native American women.
Just a bit, you think?
Deja. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just a bit. And so then we get a little picture of her personality here. So she's a captive. You know, she's very proud because she comes from this line of leaders. But even in her captivity, she appeals to the Green Martians, begging them to put aside their differences, come together as one Martian people for the sake of the planet, which is, we find, she alludes to that, this planet is dying, that her people are the ones that provide for the water and air that sustains them all. And really, we should work together to heal the planet.
A little overwrought writing with
just a tad. Well,
why will you not learn to live in amity with your fellows? I was like, really? This is the dialogue? People speak in gigantic, clumpy paragraphs.
It is.
It is a dialogue, but people don't speak in gigantic, clumpy paragraphs.
Well, she is from the aristocracy. You don't think that she has some sort of... She speaks the Queen's English, right? We had our Cockney in our last book, and now we have...
What do you think her voice sounds like because she's from Helium? Any connection?
Oh, wow.
Kind of
a squeaky voice. Kind of destroys the picture of this beautiful Martian princess. Why won't you put aside your differences? We have to heal the planet. Come on.
Why is she from New York?
That's just what I think of when I think of a squeaky voice. I don't know. All right. Anyway, so she has this big speech, and it looks like Tars Tarkas is about to say something. John's
like he had
detected
feelings.
Right. John's detected a change in his aspect, like his face is softened or something. But all of a sudden, a younger Martian jumps in and just backhands Deja, like, shut up. Well, this stirs John's protective manhood. His chivalry is offended here. So he leaps in and he kills the younger Martian. Just straight up murders him. And this establishes a sort of principle among the Green Martians that you can only fight with the weapon that you are attacked with, basically. So John, I think it was wisely, kind of hooks his leg around his pistol, the other guy's pistol, and forces him to use his sword. So then it's swords on swords.
Oh, they're playing swords?
Yeah, using swords. And he's able to kill him. He then tenderly goes over and patches up Deja Thoris's face, and we find out this is where the rest of the characters in the book, John's already told us that he's learned it, but now he can speak Martian. He speaks Barsoomian.
Which is the name of Mars to the Martians themselves.
Correct. Yes, it's the proper name of Mars, Barsoom. And he then is told by the rest of the folks that he is a Tharkian chieftain. Although he is a prisoner, by his kills, he is part of the tribe, well, sort of part of the tribe. He's earned the status of the men that he's killed. Although he's not fully part of the tribe until they go see Tal Hagis, and then his status will be determined.
Right.
So they have to take him to the big chief, Tal Hagis, and decide if he fully joins the tribe and becomes fully Tharkian.
Or dies, right? Wouldn't Tal...
He could be, yeah. Tal Hagis could determine to kill him, I suppose.
Right. Because they're not allowed to kill him because of the rules of Mars.
Correct.
Unless you're attacked, right?
Correct.
It's like stand your ground rules on Mars.
Right. So we'll get to that. We'll get that revealed a little bit later on.
I'm jumping the
because that's okay. They kind of are putting up with John Carter, but they don't love him.
No.
Well, that takes us to chapter 11, and we have a conversation between John and Deja. And so now John learns a little bit. He learns that he is now the 11th chief in line in this community. There's only 10 chiefs ahead of him, up to Tars Tarkas and Lorcas Tommel, who are the number one and number two. But he cannot challenge Lorcas Tommel, the big chief, unless the entire ruling council allows him to, or if Lorcas attacks him first. So John can kill him in self-defense, but he cannot initiate attack on the big chief.
I like how he gets out of that conversation. He's like, I laughed and changed the subject. I don't want to kill him.
I didn't want to be a jet of the Tharks anyway.
So if I kill him, I'll be what place? I'll be first. Oh, I don't want that anyway.
I don't want to anyway. I'd rather just go back to Virginia. Yeah, exactly. All right, we have a couple other little bits of Martian lore that kind of get teased out in this chapter. We get the first mention of the River Is in the Holy Valley of Dor.
Not the first mention. It was mentioned earlier on with the way that they die.
Was it alluded to?
Yeah, because they would live to be, some extreme age, but they willingly go down the River Is.
Oh, right.
It said.
Right. But Deja says that the whole planet basically speaks the same language, except for she thinks there's some other language spoken in the Valley of Dor, but she's not sure. She's not sure about that. We get a little bit of what I would say is, problematic continuity here, because Deja tells John that everybody on Mars knows all about your planet. We watch you guys all the time. She says, we know the history of Earth. And this, to me, brings up a lot of questions. If you are studying Earth history in school as well as Deja is alluding to here, it's kind of weird that she has no idea about John Carter or anything. Couldn't he just...
She explained it. He's wearing clothes.
Well, right. That's how she didn't recognize
or he's
him
not
being
wearing
from
clothes.
Earth. Right. So she thought he was Barsoomian. Didn't have those weird things on that you guys wear on Earth.
Like, they didn't understand clothes. Like, they don't understand that you're naked under clothes, and then therefore you would look... They're like, we can zoom in and see you guys. Never once have we seen a naked one of you guys, which is weird.
We've never zoomed in on the beach. Well, I guess in 19 whatever, I guess they did wear a lot of clothes to the beach. So,
but still.
But he just fought in the Civil War. Like, if you're studying Earth history, well, I guess this book is taking place in 1866, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the Civil War literally just ended. And he's like, didn't you see that whole big war on the North American continent for the last 5 years? Yeah, I fought in that. No.
No.
No recollection.
We were busy studying the flora at that point.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, their screens are good enough they can zoom in on a blade of grass. So, I don't don't know. It's kind of. I wonder if this gets touched on again, or if this is something that Burroughs threw out there and probably forgot about. We'll see. I don't recall. But then while they're talking, Sola comes up and says, "Hey, did you guys were you guys talking to Sarkoja?" And they're like, "What? No, I passed her on the stairs." So obviously Sarkoja's eavesdropping at this point.
I like, though, did we skip over that she decides she still doesn't get it, like this whole Earth thing and that where he's from, and she says, "I shall have to believe even though I cannot understand. And when my heart tells me that I believe because I wish to believe." And he's like, "It was good logic. Good earthly feminine logic."
Good earthly feminine logic, yep.
And if it satisfied her, I can't see any fault in it.
So obviously Deja Thoris does not have Mina's man's brain. She would not have been an asset in killing Dracula, unfortunately.
Although she would have been easy to convince that he was there.
Oh, right, because she'd want to believe it. It's like, oh, this guy's turned into a bat and mist and drinking people's blood? Sure.
Totally. I mean, we zoomed in on that. I saw it.
Right. We saw it all. We saw it. Well, they wouldn't see it yet, because remember, this is 1865, so we haven't gotten to the Dracula adventure yet in Earth timeline.
Yeah, but Dracula's alive.
True.
Or undead.
Undead. See, you mentioned a Dracula, she's not happy. She's scared now. So we get a little more of the history of Mars and where the Red Martians came from. So this you'll have to teach me here with the racial lens. What are we doing? What is Burroughs doing here? So we've got the fair-skinned Martians and then dark-skinned Martians who completely intermarried, like 100%, to the point where they only produce red Martians now. Two races have I don't think that's how genetics works.
Very progressive of him, though.
It could be.
I guess.
I mean, is that even possible that two races can so perfectly merge that only one remains?
Have you ever seen the composites of, like, what if there was no race? Like, if we all really did mix, we'd be like this creamy brown or something.
Right. Was it a kids museum in Columbia? We had this kids science museum in Columbia, South Carolina, where they did that. They kind of took, I think I can't remember if they did just South Carolina residents or what, but basically like what the composite kid would look like, and built this giant 30, 40 foot statue that you can climb in, and there's slides and ladders and all
climb
kinds of
inside
stuff.
the child?
Yeah, in the back of him. Yeah. You can it's kind of neat. There's slides and staircases. It's a couple stories high. It's pretty cool. Anyway, kids like going to do that. Well then, so Deja Thoris, she knows some of this lost history, and she kind of tells it to John and reveals that the city that they're in was once known as Korad, and it was a great commercial center back when there was water on Mars. And eventually, as the oceans receded, they moved inward and built more cities on the coasts until the point where I guess the water sort of vanished. And we end the chapter with they get summoned to go see Lorcas Tommel. And that is chapter 11. Okay, so that takes us to chapter 12 and the audience with Lorcas Tommel. And so Lorcas, you kind of gotta hand to the guy. He just sort of levels with John here. He says, "Hey, you know what? We kind of tolerate you. We know that you're trying to escape, and I really don't want to have to deal with you. I got to take Deja Thoris to Talhaggis. This is like the number one thing. This is super important to my people, and you're just kind of in my way."
Because she's a big get. She's like
she
a big
is.
deal.
Well, she's the granddaughter of the Red Jetak. I mean, that's just about as good as you can get.
I mean, says it all right there.
Exactly. And so he said, "Look, I got to take care of you because I'm my captive. I can kill you in self-defense, or I can kill you if you try to escape. If you suddenly, you die in pursuit or something. So I'm just kind of waiting for an excuse to kill you, basically. So keep your nose clean."
Yeah, because they know he wants to escape because Sarkoja
told him.
Eavesdropping.
Right. But they're in a thorny situation because he's a captive, but he's also now the 11th chieftain of their group.
And Sarkoja is the oldest and most trusted female. Funny that she is a sneaky little liar.
Right. Well, she's been with Tarkas for a long time, so he at least trusts her. Not like Sola, who's kind of weak.
The paradox of Sarkoja is, though, that the Martians pride themselves on their veracity, their verity, their honesty. Almost as if, like, we cannot tell a lie, but clearly they can. Or at least partial truths, because that's what she did.
Right.
Or she listened for a certain amount of time, heard what she needed to hear, and then ran away to tattle.
Right. I mean, she's tracking that he's trying to escape.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we have a nice little scene where John is talking to Tarkas, and he's like, look, man, you got to find some quarters. You're a chief now. You have to have your whole group with you. You have earned, you've killed 2 Martian chieftains, and so now you get all their furs, silks, and women. So you kind of have to take care of them. And
congratulations.
Yes. And so John explains, like, this is not a family unit. These are not my wives.
Right.
They just, I'm sort of like they're my military unit now, and I have to provide for them and quarter them and feed them and make sure they're taken care of. And they're going to make the ammo for me anyway. But then Burroughs quickly dismisses it and, I didn't really ever see them again. They cooked for me and they made my ammo, but I didn't really care. So we're not going to mention them again.
Too much to write about. Way too much.
It's very hand wave. John has these people now. They do stuff for him. Good enough. We also get a nice little... So I don't know, what do you think? Is Burroughs criticizing or praising sort of communism here? Because he says that no one owns anything in this society, right? All property is communal. The only thing that you actually own are the furs and silks that you personally need. Everything else that you have is community property, and you're just sort of a custodian for until somebody needs it.
I think he's wrapping all of that up with the fact that he blames their culture for their lack of kindness and sensitivity, and the way the children are communal, and the way there are no wives and there's no family unit and nobody owns anything. All of that has led to them being these barbaric brutes in some way, right?
Which seems sort of counterintuitive, because how can you be so barbaric if your existence is taking care of others? So I'm trying to wrap my mind around what Burroughs is trying to say here, but I'm kind of at a loss. I think he's sort of putting it as, oh, nobody owns anything. Communism, communal property, bad. Warriors don't care about anybody, bad. Oh, red Martians, good. But is there no poverty? Like, she's like the queen, Deja Thoris is obviously very wealthy amongst her people. Does she take care of the poor and sick and infirmed in her society?
It seems like that the idea of, like, it takes a village to raise a child or whatever, that's really what they're doing. And somehow that means they're devoid of care and compassion that a family unit would give them.
Right.
But that seems like a totally separate thing he just made up. Doesn't
it? Does.
Well, obviously he just made it up, but
yeah.
I don't see a logical link to that being true.
I don't either. That's why I'm trying to figure it out. If property is communal and everybody takes care of everybody else, I would think that would engender more links and more tenderness and communal togetherness, as opposed to what he's trying to tell us is, oh, they don't care about each other. They kill each other on a whim, and there's no loyalty amongst each other's. But there are. I don't know. I think we're going to come back to this later as we continue on, especially, I guess we'll spoil a little bit, but kind of keep your eye on Tarkas. And, we've already started to allude to it a little bit, So I'm just curious what Burroughs' criticisms of this society are when he also kind of holds them up as something worthy of respect. But anyway, we'll get to that, I guess, a little later on, I think. So that takes us to chapter 13, the wonderfully titled Love-Making on Mars. Let's see.
Which also makes it the most disappointing chapter.
You're hoping for a little more here.
Nothing. They're already naked. I mean, come on.
What's the low gravity doing to John Carter? Anyway, yeah. So now we're here in the city. You know, we said we're going to wait about a week after attacking the ships, and so now Burroughs kind of throws his own writing under the bus almost immediately, because he has already told us that the women primarily do the training, but now here we see Tarkus giving John personal instruction on his own. So I kind of found that interesting. Was that intentional? Did he just forget that he said women did all the martial instruction? I don't know.
Are him and Tars just like having a buddy sequence?
I think they are. They are. And so now we're getting the very cliche breaking the horse montage, right? So they're like, oh, here's these animals we ride, and they're dangerous. They throw riders off and trample us all the time. And John's just like, oh, all I gotta do is pet their snout, and they're good. So I guess we've hit the How to Train Your Dragon portion of Princess of Mars. We're just gonna.
He basically teaches them all how to be what in the dog training world is called a crossover trainer, where you once used, punishment methods, and now you're a clicker trainer, and use positive reinforcement. That's basically what he taught them all to do. And this is amazing.
It's not a dog trainer that's an SUV on a car chassis. No, it's not that kind of crossover. Okay.
That was a stretch.
All right, trying here. They're not all winners. Give me a break. All right, so he shows them that giving the animals kindness just immediately makes them very docile. And apparently this is something the Tharks, they've just never thought of. Be nice to our animals?
Right.
What? Like, come on. So maybe they're just incapable of it. Well, they're obviously not incapable of it, because John teaches them. He teaches them how to love. And he says, he does this a lot, where he says, oh, this thing I did, yeah, way later on I saw the benefit of it. And he sort of tells us, later down the road I saw, just battalions of these guys in perfect formation during battle. So yeah, my instruction worked.
I love the dialogue. Job. How have you bewitched them? That kindness, you see. And now, Elmo.
Exactly. Then we get into the nothing Jon Snow portion of the book, where John and Deja have a long conversation. She calls him my chieftain, which, had he known at the time what that meant, but he wouldn't be months until he learned what that meant. And then he calls her my princess.
She's mad.
She blushes and she's like, oh, my princess. Ooh. Well, what does that mean? Oh, I'm not going to tell you, but if only you knew what you just said to me. Just know that I have listened without anger. So.
Well, I can't wait for that big reveal.
I know, right? So what's going on here?
What a child, a great warrior, and yet a stumbling little child.
Exactly.
What if I don't know?
You know nothing, Jon Snow. All right, so she is this characterization of Deja Thoris. She whiplashes chapter to chapter. In one chapter, she's this prideful, queen, granddaughter from this long line of Jeds. She'll bow to no green Martian, imploring them to join and be peaceful in coexistence. And then she's like the blushing milkmaid giggling at John Carter going, oh, my princess. So I don't know. She doesn't know what she wants to be, this character.
He's that manly. He just makes her melt.
I don't know if I can relate, but sure.
Go downstairs and call your wife your princess.
My princess. I think she would just kind of stare at me and go, what do you want? What's
Are
going
you
on?
going to help
here?
with these dishes or not?
Exactly. Wow. See, I automatically do it though. I don't need to be asked. I know my times of the day. After breakfast and after dinner, those are my dish times.
Good. Oh, it's starting to snow here.
Now, is it?
Yeah.
I don't see it's moved east. We finished about 2 hours ago. It finished snowing. It's all melted too, by the way. It sat on the grass for an hour or two. Now it's totally gone. But it's nice and overcast. I like these overcast gray days.
I miss the old school snow of like 96. You know, when it was like feet thick.
Yeah. I could take that now that I'm unemployed. I know where to go. Like, sure, snow. I don't care. I don't have anything to do. I'm in the house anyway.
I always had to work because I always worked from home the last 5 years. So it was like snow day doesn't exist.
Doesn't matter. All right. Well, that ends this section of A Princess of Mars. Any other thoughts on this portion?
It's interesting that I am reading this, and then I just finished a book by Cormac McCarthy called All the Pretty Horses, and they're comparable because the main character is traveling by horse from Texas through Mexico and back again, and he falls in love with the daughter of the hacendado. Anyway, they're just so different, but so the same. Like, this is on Mars, but it's still kind of like a Western.
Right.
You know? And
sure.
The hero of the story or whatever. Now, Cormac McCarthy. Have you read any Cormac McCarthy?
I started to read The Road, and I got like 5 chapters in. I'm like, nope, not for me. I'm done. Not doing this.
Why? Because it's so depressing?
Well, it's kid. I can't do kid stuff. I don't do kid stuff.
I tried to make Ben watch that movie, and at one point he was like, "Why have you done this to me?"
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. But similarly, in a way, Cormac takes whatever theme he's got, and it's a little darker than just a cowboy book or whatever. Anyway,
sure.
The writing is beautiful also, but reading them alongside each other, I found it very interesting. So listeners, go ahead, go pick up Cormac McCarthy and read All the Pretty Horses. And you can compare it to the Mars, like, hero. What do you call that? Like, not really a travel log, but he is kind of like travel logging his journey to Mars and what he sees and things like that. Anyway, I just thought the comparison was interesting.
Oh, okay.
Just a tidbit for you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so for next week, we're going to be reading up through chapter 18. So 14 to 18 is your next reading assignment. And we will be back next week to discuss.
Sweet.
Yeah. So if you like what we're doing here, why don't you hop on over to Apple Podcasts, give us a rating and review. Tell us what you think, because not only does it help us with what we're doing, but it helps other people find the show. And isn't that what you want in a book club? You want more people to be reading, because that's the goal. You can also hit us up on social media. We are at CYST Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and the Facebook, as well as, if you still use email, some people do, but I don't know if anybody under 25 does, you can send us an email, cystpod@gmail.com. Until next time, if you are doing distance learning and you have a snow day, do you even have snow days? Do you still have to do Zoom school?
Right,
I don't know. I guess you do.
Wah, wah.
Poor guys, still do school. All right, we'll see you next time, folks.
Peace.